Hello, welcome to Paris, where I'm with my good friend Frédéric Humbert. Frédéric, it's great to see you again. It's been a while.
Yep.
And we're going to sort of talk about rugby history, rugby memorabilia, World Rugby Memorial, and of course then your new project at the end.
Yep.
But I won't mention that just yet. So with memorabilia and rugby history, you've been involved in so many international projects over the years, haven't you?
I started to have an interest into rugby history something like 20-25 years ago, after I stopped playing rugby, obviously. So first as a collector and gathering a collection of the early days of rugby. This is my favorite part of the rugby history, say before the 30s. Sharing that online was from day one my guidelines. So sharing the pictures, sharing the stories, and with then getting involved into exhibition during World War Cup in Paris in 2007, and then joining the committee of World Rugby Museum a couple of years later, and now working with a French Union as a history, dealing with history project for the FFR.
That's it. And of course, you and I met really through one of, originally online, didn't we? Through one of the history groups.
Definitely spent a lot of time and meeting a lot of people, digging into the history of all these rugby players who either died at war or how rugby developed during World War I. So that was nearly uncovering things because it was not addressed in any book or any story, and we had the opportunity, because now everything is online, to either meet the families or getting access to some documents that were not available before, and say this was a great time for rugby history and a great opportunity to let these people to make these people be in light, because they were quite forgotten before, and to pay a tribute to them.
That's right, exactly. And I mean, for me, my history side really comes back through my family. My rugby playing days and experience as a match official sort of got me more interested deeper into rugby, and when I retired from playing, then from refereeing, it was trying to find something of interest to do to stay in the game, and luckily got involved in a project in 2013, which came to fruition in 2014. Absolutely. On the Chemin des Dames, of course, La Tranchée de Rugbymen,
yep.
where we commemorated those first 4 or 5 internationals killed in World War I. And from there we moved forward and developed the World Rugby Memorial itself in 2017.
Right.
With the sculpture by Jean-Pierre Rive, which is now, as you know, on the battlefields of the Chemin des Dames, next Absolutely. To the Bass Memorial. Somewhere along that journey, you and I came across one another.
Yeah, absolutely, and the Bass Memorial rings a bell as well, because I am a member of Aviron Bayonnais, and a lot of young players from Aviron, which club was French champion in 1913. That's right. Died at Chemin des Dames and fought there, and are celebrated there.
From that last final, the French final, wasn't there, in 1914? Of the players, many of them were involved in the Great War, weren't they?
Absolutely. This last final of Perpignan against Tarbes, and as other clubs, I mean, they lost quite a big deal of players. The most iconic of them is from Aimé Giral in Perpignan, who was a young fly half who died at 20 at the beginning of the war, and then the stadium in Perpignan is named after him. But there are many others, and we do our best, you and I, to remember them. Indeed.
And now, of course, I'm very much into the Rugby World War II project, yep. Which we launched last week in Normandy, with the future events coming up, planned for Nijmegen and for Lincoln, and there's an idea for a couple of others, we hope in Lille and in Brussels, in between all this, next spring 25, to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. But again, sort of World War II is we move forward as another subject, and you're going to help as our advisor on the French side about the history of rugby in World War II.
Yeah. This is not a very well-known area of of French rugby. It's quite, well, it's an understatement to say it was a complicated times, but at the same time, international rugby was out of the picture. So difficult period for French rugby. There was no international relationship were broken from all the British countries since the beginning of the 30s. And
indeed.
It was agreed with the British to resume relationship in 39, and the cost of that was to cancel the French Championship. So it was agreed that we could play France in a tournament in 1940s, and something went wrong, and it was all cancelled. But this, as it was the case in the First World War, this wartime helped the country to tighten the links and to stay together.
The time of occupation, when one thinks about it, from 1940 through to 1944, you had the division of France anyway, with the north of France and then the Vichy South, and of course that also created divisions within the game of rugby, didn't it, between rugby union, rugby league?
So two different things there. So one of the very first things the Vichy authorities decided was to cancel all professional sports, and first on the list was rugby league. And the other thing was they also decided to resume the French Championship in 1943. The time the situation was fairly complex because the south of France was invaded, was called Free Zone, and the north of France was invaded by the Germans. So they have to arrange a very complex system where, say, a significant part of the game was cancelled because it wasn't possible to travel, things like this. But they resumed French Championship.
Yeah, you would. I mean, it's just sort of something you wouldn't have expected, would you? You know, being an occupied country, that sport would, particularly team sport, would still be allowed. I was actually going to take you down the route, to be honest, about a great story you told me, in which you recorded for us on the Rugby Heroes video about Alain Muir.
Yeah, definitely. Alain Muir is an American player who settled in France at the turn of the century. So when he was 20, he settled in France and devoted his whole life to sport. So he was one of the very first French international, playing against New Zealand and England in 1906. And then he was one of the main sports officials first at Racing Club de France, and he was also the international secretary of the Olympics in 24. He was the captain of the tennis team in the 20s. And this gentleman, during First World War, he embarked with what was called the American ambulances. So he volunteered to go to the front to run ambulances, which were financed by the American people in France. And this organization during the Second World War was reinitiated, and he was commander in second. They were engaged into the Battle of France in the 40s, and then after the armistice, they settled in Clermont-Ferrand. And Alain Muir went into French resistance in 43, was arrested in 43, deported in 43, died in 44 in a German concentration camp. So he definitely someone to be remembered. And to
when we speak about the rugby heroes, don't we?
Yeah, definitely one of them.
Of that time.
Yeah.
And you've got other stories as well from that same period.
Yeah, I was discussing with you about one of a Welsh gentleman called Charles Leishon.
Yes.
Charles Leishon was Welsh, born in Mountain Ash, and in 1907 he moved to France, one of the very first player to play in French Championship in Nantes, and then to be a referee in French Championship. After the First War, he settled in Paris and was a referee for Paris Committee. And as such, he was picked to be the referee during the Olympic Games. He was picked to referee America versus Romania.
That was 1924, wasn't it?
May 1924, and he has to be recorded to be the very first referee to send off a player during an international match. So in 24, so an American player was sent off during that match. But Leishon was arrested in 44 during the war as an English person being in France. He was deported to Buchenwald and died in Buchenwald in 44. So like very much as well him to be remembered.
Absolutely.
Of the rugby players or rugby officials to be celebrated in this period.
That's right, and as I said earlier on, we're developing the Rugby World War II project. It's about recognising people from around the world. I mean, we think European, but we know sort of across the world. You've got South Africans, New Zealanders, the Pacific Islanders. Rugby was, of course, taking place in Canada, Newfoundland, in the United States.
There's a lot to say about all these New Zealanders who fought in North Africa.
Yes.
And they published after the war a fantastic book named Rugby versus Rommel, covering all the story of the NZDF in North Africa and later in France. I mean, you have to read that.
Indeed. Frédéric, it'd be great to welcome you here. But thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's been great to see you. It's been far too long. So
anytime, welcome in Paris.
Indeed, thank you. And I'll see you again very, very soon. Thanks, Frédéric.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.